This is MediaBistro.com's Media Beat. We're here with Matthew Hiltzik, founder of Hiltzik Strategies. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Sure, thank you.
In part two, I just wanted to get your take on some current events and some trends in the PR industry. And I wanted to start off with Toyota. In the news, obviously, a lot with their recall and in front of Congress this week. What do you make of their crisis communication strategy and how that's been handled from a PR perspective?
Well, I think like with anything else, a lot of it comes from the client themselves and how they choose to deal with the problem. And while I'm not familiar with all the details, it does seem as if Toyota sort of sat on this hoping it would go away for a while, as opposed to taking a more aggressive approach when the problems first came up.
Sure. And the state of Israel launched a new PR campaign this month, just aimed at changing image abroad of Israel. And a lot of PR executives we've spoken with who have handled client Israeli companies or different Israeli communications have said that their belief is that the Israeli government doesn't really value PR, but maybe that's changing. What's your take on that?
Well, I've dealt with a lot of folks over in Israel and some different companies. Look, I think obviously at the end of the day, the Israelis appreciate the importance of good public relations. But you have to remember that they're put in a situation where in many respects, no matter what they do, a certain significant percentage of the world is going to automatically look at it in the most negative way possible anyway.
We were talking a bit about social media before as it relates to politics, and social media obviously one of the biggest issues in PR and communications. And some of the agencies I see, despite all the hype about social media, still like to go very minimal with their website, just sort of name, contact info, your site, the same. Am I reading into that? Is there a strategy behind that? Is something you want to portray the site?
Well, I mean, I'm very respectful because of the high-profile nature of a significant number of our clients. I want to be respectful of them. I'm not looking to trade on their, on their publicity for my own. And I think it's the type of thing where when we meet with people and we're able to engage, we're open about who we work with. As we've discussed, I'm very pleased and honored to have the clients that we do have.
And in the PR industry, is hiring. We're seeing a lot of jobs posting on our job board, a lot of action. Fortunately, the media side of things seems to be shrinking at a lot of the mainstream organizations. What do you think the media landscape, what are some of the biggest things you're looking at in terms of trends 5 years from now? What will we be talking about? What will we see in terms of mainstream media?
Well, I mean, when I was working at Miramax, and it's similarly when I was working in politics with the Democratic Party, I was at places where you had to do a lot more with less. And in politics, we had 5 or 6 people there. I was the press secretary and deputy executive director, at a point. And, you just understood you had a lot of jobs to do and you had to get them done.
And a lot of PR people are talking about content creation, right? Creating your own content, social media. Edelman just hired a BBC vet as its first chief content officer. What do you think about the value of content creation versus also the value of earned media, which has been the heritage in the PR industry?
Well, look, I in certain ways I view content creation as a different form of earned media. I mean, you have to pay to make it, but I still think you're going to have to earn the media in terms of how you position it, how you distribute it, and being creative in terms of engaging people with it. Look, personally, I had the best time in the world being able to learn from people at Miramax and by osmosis, how much I learned from Harvey about how to edit, and from other people there too, but just about how to edit films and how to edit. Eventually, you can apply it to commercials and other things as well. And I think that's really, it helped make me a more well-rounded person, and I think that you have to understand how people are going to consume it on the other end. In terms of the earned media, look, there's still creative. People need to be creative. There's still all sorts of stunts, and especially with consumer PR, there's huge opportunities to be creative. But the reality is, it's not that much different than what you did before.
Do you think the media ecosystem now is more polarized than it was 5 to 10 years ago? And does social media have something to do with that? If so,
well, what do you mean in terms of polarization? Like what, in politics or what area?
Just in the media landscape, the viewpoints and different things being put across. It seems like with being able to communicate directly to your constituents and with social media, there is a need that you can just watch what you want to watch and just be attuned to what you want and sort of tune out everything else. And does that create for a more polarized media environment given these new social media channels?
No, I think it's definitely a challenge. I mean, it's at least somewhere when you had fewer choices, you had a better likelihood of both sides being represented, and I think there's a danger in society if people are only establishing certain viewpoints earlier and then sticking with them throughout. I think that's why it's really important to have outlets that are engaging enough that people still respect them both ways. And I think that I think that's going to be one of the trends that we're going to see with some of the news channels.
All right, thanks, Matthew. I'm here with Matthew Hiltzik, Hiltzik Strategies. Stay tuned for part 3, where we talk a little bit about some of your mentors in the industry and also about what advice you'd give to some folks starting out in the PR industry.
Great.